I never thought I'd have to wage war just to leave my own driveway, but that's exactly what it came to when the new HOA President decided she didn't like where I parked my truck. Before we even comment which country you're watching from, because this one's going to make you question how far authority should really go every morning around. I'd grab my coffee, lock the door, and head out for work.
But lately there was always her car blocking my driveway, same spot every single day, a shiny white with HOA President sticker on the back window like it was some kind of royal tile. At first I thought it was just bad parking, maybe coincidence. But when it happened 4 mornings in a row, I knew this wasn't an accident. The first time I confronted her, she smiled that fake tight-lipped smile and said, "Oh, I just needed to check your complaints paperwork. You'll thank me later." I blinked, stunned. Complaints paperwork for my own property. She stood, their arms crossed, clipboard in hand like a self-appointed sheriff. "Move your car," I told her, keeping my voice calm. But she didn't. "But you'll get a notice," she said, her tone clipped, and turned her back to me. That was the first day I was late to work because of her. By the third time, I'd already started recording her on my phone just in case, and good thing I did, because things were about to escalate way beyond pity. Parking neighbors began to notice. Some whispered about how she'd fined people for leaving trash cans out too long or for decorations that didn't fit the neighborhood aesthetic. But blocking someone's driveway, that was new. She wasn't enforcing rules anymore. She was making them up. The next week, I walked outside early just to catch her in the act. The sound of her engine idling in the cold morning air felt like a challenge. I approached Kara, rolling, and said, "You do this every day?" Why, she rolled down her window and smiled. "Because your driveway is encroaching on HOA property lanes," she replied, tapping her clipboard. "I'm here to ensure community standards are met." It was complete nonsense. My driveway had been there for 15 years, poured by the builder before the HOA even existed. I told her to show me proof. She refused. "If you don't comply, I'll have you reported for violation," she snapped before driving off, leaving tire marks across my curb. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about property lanes or regulations. This was about control. She wanted to humiliate me in front of the neighborhood, to remind everyone that she could do whatever she pleased. I stood there, coffee cooling in my hand, watching her tail lights disappear, and I decided this wasn't going to end with warnings and words. The next few days, I tried everything reasonable. I contacted the HOA board, but every email bounced back with some excuse like, "Well, look into it," or "The president has final authority." I even went down to city zoning, who confirmed that my driveway was fully legal and entirely on my property. Armed with the documents, I knocked on her door one evening. Her porch lights flickered on as she opened the door, wearing that same smug expression. "You're trespassing," she said flightly. I held out the papers. "Actually, I'm giving you proof that you're blocking private property." She lied and said, "Then sue me." She slammed the door before I could respond. That lie stuck with me all night. It wasn't just arrogance, it was confidence, the kind that comes from knowing most people won't fight back. But I was most people. By the end of the week, she doubled down. Not only was she parking there daily, but now she started leaving official HOA notices taped to my garage, citing unauthorized vehicle placement and improper landscaping. My driveway had never looked better, yet somehow it was now a crime scene in her eyes. The sight of those papers flapping in the breeze made my blood boil. Every morning neighbors peeked through blinds as if watching a neighborhood soap opera. Some even whispered, "Just pay a fine." But it wasn't about money anymore, it was about principle. One morning I stood there staring at her car blocking my driveway again, and something inside me snapped. If she wants to play games, I might go play harder. I went inside, grabbed the tape, measured, and marked the exact legal boundary of my driveway. Then I called a local landscaping company. When they showed up, I gave them a plan: 4 massive concrete planters, each weighing nearly a ton, filled with thick shrubs and flowers. "Can you make them look nice?" I asked the foreman. "Brand nice and immovable," he replied. Within days, they arrived with a flam truck and a crane. As the crew lowered the first 2 planters, the grinding sound of metal chains echoed through the neighborhood. Curious onlookers gathered. Phones came out. I could feel eyes from behind curtains.
The HOA President came storming down her driveway, her heels clacking like gunshots. "What do you think you're doing?" she yelled, voice sharp and shrill protecting my property, I said, evilly not taking my eyes off the crane operator. She waved her clipboard in the air like a weapon.
This violates community guidelines. She barked. You can't install obstructions without HOA approval. The crane dropped the file planter with a thunderous thud. The sound made her flinch. I turned to her, smelling funny. I said,
"You didn't ask for my approval when you blocked my driveway." Her face flushed red. "You'll have these removed," she hissed. "You'll regret this." The crew finished up, and I paid them on the spot. Those 410 planters now formed a perfect border, a concrete wall of defiance. She couldn't move.
She stood there, fuming, staring at them like they were a personal insult. At night, she sent me 5 HOA violation emails in a row. Everyone threatened fines and disciplinary action. I replied, once trembling them. After that silence for almost 2 days, I thought maybe she'd given up. Then on the 3rd morning, I woke up to the sound of scraping metal outside. I rushed out barefoot and saw her with a tow truck. The driver looked uncomfortable, hands on his hips. "Man, these aren't vehicles," he said. "I can't tow concrete." She snapped, "You're getting paid, aren't you? Figure it out." I stepped closer, holding my phone camera. "You're trespassing," I called out. She froze, glaring. "This is HOA jurisdiction," she insisted. I showed her the city-approved property map right in front of her. "No," I said.
"This is my jurisdiction." She spluttered at a loss for words, while the tow truck driver shook his head and muttered him out of here. He drove off, leaving her standing there in front of my new fortress of planters. The sound of the truck fading down the street was like music.
But something about her expression told me she wasn't done. There was a flicker of something, not defeat, but calculation. She was planning her next move, and I could feel. I didn't know when it would come, but I was ready. What I didn't realize then was that this little neighborhood battle was about to turn into a full-blown war, one that would drag the entire HOA board into the light.
2 days later, I came home to find a letter taped to my door, not the usual HOA notice, but a formal-looking envelope with a lawyer's header. It read, "Cease and desist installation of unauthorized structures obstructing community access roads." I almost laughed. My planters were on my driveway, not a road, not an access lane, my property, but the fact she'd involved an attorney mean she was desperate. That same evening, I decided to end this once and for all. I gathered every email, every video, every photo had taken of her car blocking my driveway. Then I contacted the city property assessor's office and the local news station. I didn't want to fight her in secret anymore. I wanted everyone to see the truth. By the weekend, the news van was parked right in front of my house. A reporter asked me what was happening, and I told the full story. "She's abusing power," I said plainly. "This isn't about community standards, it's about control." Within hours, neighbors began stepping forward. One elderly couple told the reporter she fined them $1,000 for having a bird fear. Another neighbor admitted she was charged for painting her mailbox the wrong shade of black. The HOA board, previously silent, suddenly scrambled to distance themselves from her. The next morning, an emergency meeting was called. When I arrived, the room was tense. Folding chairs lined up. Neighbors whispering. The president sat at the front, eyes darting like a cornered cat. "I'm being unfairly targeted," she started, voice trembling slightly. "These accusations are lies." But one by one, neighbors stood up, sharing their stories. It wasn't just me. She had overstepped with everyone. Every single person had been bullied, fined, or harassed. The turning point came when the city zoning officer entered the room holding a rolled-up map. He spread it on the table. "For the record," he said, "the driveway in question lies entirely within the homeowner's property." Lynn's gasp rippled through the crowd. Her face went pale. I just sat there silent, letting the truth do its work. The board voted unanimously to suspend her authority pending investigation. As she stormed out, she hissed under her breath, "This isn't over." But it was a week later. A formal notice went out to the entire neighborhood. She'd been removed from office for abuse of power and falsifying citations. My planters remained exactly where they were, untouched, now surrounded by freshly planted flowers. The community had helped me, and it was putty justice seeing those heavy concrete walls standing proud while her authority crumbled when she finally moved.